Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Protecting working people's economic security is, and always has been, a priority for this government. We are passionate about it because we believe in people being allowed to meet their potential, fulfil their aspirations, wherever they come from in life. Our mission is to get wages up, tax down and welfare under control. The reforms to tax credits in the motion on the order paper today need to be understood as part of a wider package of reforms. Increases to the personal allowance, increased childcare provision for working families, and of course the national living wage. Next April, the legal minimum pay for a full-time worker will already be £1,300 higher than a year before. We've done this at a time when businesses have created record numbers of jobs. Yes, 1,000 a day, 2 million in total, to the highest rate we've ever reached. Coupled with strongly rising wages, more hours on offer and low inflation, our policies are delivering security and prosperity for working households up and down the country. It's what the country deserves, it's what we're doing, and I give way to the Honourable Lady.
Isn't the Minister aware of the fact that average incomes are only going to reach their pre-recession point in 2017 after 7 years of this vile Tory government?
For a fact, Madam Deputy Speaker, living standards this year have reached their beyond their pre-crisis point, or indeed any prior year. Madam Deputy Speaker, we can make lasting economic reforms only because we've taken the tough decisions to get this country back on its feet after the financial crisis, the crisis which crashed into Labour's structural deficit that was among the highest in the developed world. Some, Madam Deputy Speaker, choose to indulge in a game of what if we had unlimited money. We face facts. In 2010, the government inherited a deficit of £153 billion. That's almost £6,000 for every household in the country. Our budget deficit was 10.2% of GDP. For every £4 government was spending, £1 of it was borrowed. It could not be allowed to go on. For when governments lose control of the national finances, those who lose the most are generally those who have the least.
The Minister is making some excellent points, and I fully support his desire to reduce the deficit and reform tax credit. But I just wonder, because this is a listening government, in the coming weeks, as we are considering the impact of this, and in terms of compassion, it might be worth looking at tweaking the child tax credit, or indeed the married allowance, which is very low, just in terms of compassion, to try and soften the blow. It's something that I don't expect the Minister to answer now, but it's worth considering shortly.
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, as I will come on to outline, there are a number of things that the government is doing which have some offset against what's happening on tax credits. I give way to my right honourable friend.
To my honourable friend for giving away. But wouldn't he agree with me that the opposition have completely ignored the background, which is that at the moment wages are rising at 3.5%? In other words, we're seeing wages rising, the policy is working, and it would be wrong in those circumstances to continue to subsidise and act as a drag on wages by using tax credits in the way they were.
Madam Deputy Speaker, as a result of the strong economic management of this government, we are indeed seeing strong wage growth coupled with strong employment growth, and this is the right time to make lasting economic reforms. Madam Deputy Speaker, on the deficit, much progress has been made, but this year we are still having to borrow £3,300 for every household in the land. To tackle a deficit of that proportion does require all income groups to share the burden, and I agree with the Honourable Lady, it is right that those with the broadest shoulders should bear the most.
Madam Deputy Speaker, to put this in context, will my honourable friend confirm that the average taxpayer in this country is paying £1,900 extra tax this year just for the cost of government debt interest? Is not the only way to get this debt tax on ordinary taxpayers down to get rid of the deficit and then pay down the debt, something the Labour Party seem incapable of grasping?
Madam Deputy Speaker, it is indeed an extraordinary amount. For every month that we fail to deal with the deficit, not only would we be racking up more debts for all of our children, we would also be incurring greater interest charges in the here and now, which mean money not spent on other essential services. The Right Honourable Lady.
Well, here's the question. I have to admit that, in fact, I am embarrassed to say that I voted with the government in the cut to tax credits. Yes, well, I feel embarrassed about it now as well, because I did so on the clear basis and the clear understanding that there would be mitigation of the worst effects of the cuts to tax credits in the Chancellor's autumn statement. The Minister cannot imagine my anger as I listened to his party conference and the Chancellor and the Prime Minister ruling out any such mitigation. I will be voting with the opposition party this evening unless the Minister tells this House today what mitigation the Chancellor will guarantee in his autumn statement, and I give the Minister the opportunity to persuade me to change my mind again.
Right Honourable Lady, who is a veteran and very experienced in the House, will know I can't actually preempt anything in the Chancellor's autumn statement on this or any other subject. I think she was right to vote with the government on the statutory instrument, and as I'm going to be outlining in my remarks today, this is a reform package of measures which is for working people, and it is the right thing to do for the future of those families and the future of our country.
Could he confirm that the figures the Prime Minister uses in saying that 8 out of 10 people will be better off as a result of the government measures includes all of us, large numbers of other people? The 2 out of the 10 who are not included in being better off are all those claiming tax credits. Will he confirm that when we go into the next general election, all the current 3.2 million tax credit claimants now will not be better off as a result of all the measures that he's announced?
I hesitate to use a double negative, but no, I cannot say that they will not be better off. Many, many people will be better off. On the specific point of the 8 in 10, that refers to financial year 2017-18, and, as he will know, refers to all working families. Obviously, the precise impact of the different measures with tax credits, with the national living wage, with the income tax personal allowance, with childcare, with social rents and all the other different elements will vary on precise circumstances, but many, many families will be considerably better off. And the Honourable Lady herself was good enough to quote one such example of one particular type of family of being £2,440 better off by 2020. Madam Deputy Speaker, the tax credit reforms, Madam Deputy Speaker, are an important part of fiscal rebalancing, but they are only one part. On the same day that the tax credit's lower threshold and higher taper rate take effect, we're also reforming dividend tax and pensions relief for those on high incomes, initiating a further clampdown on tax avoidance. These are 3 among a set of measures that also includes the end of permanent non-dom status, restrictions on landlords' tax relief, and, of course, the continuation of a top rate of tax which is higher than in 4,718 of the 4,753 days that the party opposite was in office. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, if you look at how the burden of deficit reduction is spread through society, the simple fact is this: the distribution of spending among income groups is constant between 2010 and 2017, while the burden of tax has shifted towards the best off. I give way to my honourable friend.
Grateful to my honourable friend for giving way. Does he agree with the former Labour Chancellor of the Exchequer, Alistair Darling, who said that subsidising lower wages in the way that tax credits did was never ever the intention?
They don't like that. He brings me on quite handily to my very next point, which was that, of course, when tax credits first came in, their aim was entirely noble, but they quickly soared out of control. The total cost more than trebled between 1999 and 2010, ending up costing £30 billion in 2010. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, scandalously, under the last government, while this spending spiralled, in-work poverty actually rose by 20%. Now, we can kick a problem down the road or we can do something about it. We, Madam Deputy Speaker, we chose to do something about it. Our reforms don't abolish tax credits or anything close. Of course I'll give way to them.
Confirm that the average amount of tax credit billed to the Exchequer during Labour's period in office was £22 billion, whereas under the Conservative Party it's been £30 billion. So it's gone up on your watch.
I heard him making this quite extraordinary point on Newsnight last night. And talk about an average. So, of course, you've got a curve that goes like that, and you draw a line through it. So, of course, it's going to be lower in the middle than it is at the end. The point is they kept on rising. Will you let me answer? The point is they kept on rising, Madam Deputy Speaker, with particular spikes just before 2000 and 2010.
Owen Galway. Does the Minister share my astonishment that, despite being asked on 4 or 5 separate occasions, his opposite number failed to give any answer at all for how the opposition would fund this £4 billion, and does that not demonstrate Labour cannot be trusted with our public finances?
Madam Deputy Speaker, under these reforms, fully half of families will still be eligible for tax credits, and the total cost will come down only to what it was as recently as 2008. They will focus support on those on the lowest incomes, while taking those on higher incomes off tax credits altogether. The Honourable Lady.
How does he explain to 2.7 million children that this is going to be brought in by this party which says that it's on the side of working families? It's a disgrace.
Yes. Madam Deputy Speaker, the bills of today will be paid at some point. We believe that the challenges for this generation should be dealt with by this generation. We believe we need to get our finances under control, eliminate the deficit, and not just pass on that problem to our children and indeed our grandchildren. The Honourable Lady.
The Minister for giving way. Do you think that the 1% pay cap on public sector workers contradicts your policy on a high-wage economy?
Madam Deputy Speaker, of course it is difficult to have pay restraint in the public sector. I don't deny that. But that 1% restraint has also protected 200,000 jobs in the public sector, which I think is a very important aim. And it is also, of course, the fact that since 2007-8, pay in the public sector has risen faster than it has in the private. I keep saying I must make some progress. I think for the moment I must mean it, Madam Deputy Speaker. These reforms to tax credits go hand in hand with the new settlement for working Britain that my right honourable friend, the Chancellor, set out in the last budget. At the same time, we're introducing radical measures to put more cash where it belongs, in the pockets of hard-working people. Our increases to the tax-free personal allowance mean that a typical basic rate taxpayer has seen... Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, our increases to the tax-free personal allowance mean that a typical basic rate taxpayer has seen their income tax bill cut by £825 already since 2010. We add a further £80 next year and a further £40 the year after. I give way to my honourable friend.
To my honourable friend. With respect to personal allowances, will he explain to the House how actually an increase in the personal allowance has actually helped the very people that the party opposite is claiming are going to be affected by this cut?
Madam Deputy Speaker, we believe in taking people out of tax where it's possible to do so and enabling them to keep more of the money that they have earned. Madam Deputy Speaker, we are making these necessary changes for the future of all sorts of families, but more than anybody, for the sake of our children. And she will know that the best way to address poverty is through work, and that's what we've been doing. And she will know the statistics that where a child is in poverty and a parent moves into work, in 75% of cases they move out of poverty as a result. And she will also know before the Honourable Lady for Finsbury interjects, she will also know that where the parent moves from part-time work to full-time work, 75% of those children also move out of poverty. Madam Deputy Speaker, from next April we will have the national living wage. By 2020, when it will be worth more than £9 an hour, it will mean over £5,000 more in gross full-time pay for someone on minimum wage today. The Honourable Lady.
Does he share my frustration that the party opposite don't seem to understand that tax credits involve the taxpayers subsidising businesses who are paying low wages, and this has to change?
Next point, which is that already more than 200 firms, including some of our biggest employers, have announced they intend to pay staff at or above the national living wage before it comes into effect, and that's helped to push private sector wage growth to 4.4%, according to the latest figures, at a time of low or no inflation. And then there are the wider things we've done on living costs. The council tax we've frozen. The fuel duty we've frozen. On childcare, we've already brought in 15 hours for the 40% most disadvantaged. 2-year-olds just through its first full year of operation and still ramping up. From 2017, there'll be 30 hours for working families with 3- and 4-year-olds, and just the additional 15 hours are worth some £2,500 per child per year. The honourable friend from the honourable from Denton and Reddish.
Grateful to the Minister for giving way. He can cut all the waffle. To many of my constituents, this is a matter of trust. Why does he think that the Prime Minister, on the 30th of April this year, toured the TV studios and told an audience at question time that he would not cut tax credits? That was 7 days before the general election. Does he think that had anything to do with it?
Madam Deputy Speaker, the statutory instrument that we are discussing today does not affect the level of the child tax credits. He will know, as he is a keen student of these matters, the way the taper works on tax credit awards. It affects the sort of stacking effect of all different elements, but the child tax credit element, as the Prime Minister said, is not being changed. Perhaps most importantly of all is the wider effect of the national living wage. The Independent Office for Budget Responsibility estimates that as the national living wage imposes upward pressure further up the scale, 6 million people in total will get a pay rise. That effect actually starts now, but it goes on going up right up to the end of the decade. Madam Deputy Speaker, we're not just talking about a lower welfare, lower tax, higher wage economy, we are seeing it happen.
The Minister giving way, and he's made the point repeatedly that the new national minimum wage is meant to offset the reduction in tax credits. Could he tell us what proportion of those people who are on tax credits currently are on the national minimum wage? I suspect I won't get the answer, so I'll tell him it's 25%.
His intervention is very timely. His intervention is very timely. For had he been, sorry, I'm not going to say something that might sound as I don't mean it to sound, but had he been listening, I was talking about the wider effects of the national living wage, which do not just affect people on the national minimum wage, but a much wider distribution. Most economists estimate that it would extend about 25% of the way up the income scale. Well, it does answer his question, because he was suggesting that this proportion would not benefit from the national living wage, and that is incorrect. A lot of people who are not on today's minimum wage will also benefit, and the estimate is that it sums to about 6. Someone said how many? Okay, the estimate is it sums to about 6 million people will benefit directly or indirectly, of course.
Can I just ask the Minister about this subsidy point? Look, I think we can all agree that the context is that we need to reconfigure our labour market. We've got almost 6 million people who are not earning a wage
that they can live off. And ultimately, yes, a subsidy going to employers is not desirable. But surely the issue here is the order in which you transform your economy. And the fact is, through properly prosecuted industrial strategies, we're not seeing that obviously in our steel industry, you can reconfigure your labour market. That comes first, before you take away the tax credits and the support from people who aren't earning enough. Ultimately, that is the difference between these two sides.
Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, the harsh reality that we face is that we do have a budget deficit which is the equivalent of £3,300 for every household in the country, and we do need to take firm action on that now. And it is right, as I said earlier, that burden does have to be spread right throughout society, but it's also right that the burden is shifted as far towards the upper end, which is what has happened with the tax burden. My honourable friend has been waiting.
Thank the Minister for giving way. He will know there are many on this side, including myself, who are concerned about these changes. I won't be voting, however, with the opposition because of the nature of this vote and its non-binding effect. However, can he confirm, further to the reference point, well, if a few more of them had turned up at the original vote, we might have actually won. But if he could take him back to the point of the lady for North Down, can he confirm, though, that the autumn statement does offer the opportunity for this government to mitigate some of these effects, whether that's through a change to the order or through other tax changes? And can he confirm to me and many others on this side who are concerned that the Treasury are looking at other things that can be done to help this group of people?
Number of mitigating elements involved in this package. We've been talking about the national living wage. There are major. Well, these things are all new. They're all new. There are major extensions to childcare provision. We have reductions in social rents, and we have the increases in the income tax personal allowance. Madam Deputy Speaker, before I conclude, and I am very conscious, Madam Deputy Speaker, of time, before I conclude, I do want to address a couple of points about poverty. The best route out of poverty is employment. We've created the conditions for the private sector, creating record numbers of jobs, over 2 million since 2010. And the best way to target in-work poverty is firstly by helping people move up the hours scale, and secondly by increasing wages. And we are seeing wages rise strongly. And we're seeing living standards rising by 3.1% year on year. I'm not going to give way again because I'm very conscious of time. Many people want to speak, and I'm towards the end of my remarks. While the number of people in in-work poverty is 200,000 lower than at its peak in 2008-09. And let me remind the House of the surest way to create poverty and to dash the aspirations of working families up and down the country. It is to lose control of the public finances. And, Madam Deputy Speaker, we're making sure that never happens again. We are driving down the deficit. We've set out the path towards surplus, and through our Charter for Budget Responsibility, we're making sure we insulate ourselves against any future shocks the world economy may throw at us. We do all this, Madam Deputy Speaker, while delivering a new settlement for working Britain, one where decent wages aren't subsidised by the public purse but met by employers, one which says to employers, you can have very competitive tax, but you must pay your people properly, one which allows hard-working people to keep more of the money they earn, one which offers a way out of reliance on benefits and top-ups through work that pays. These have not been easy decisions to make, Madam Deputy Speaker, but we do face a £3,300 per household deficit, and inevitably, when you reduce the level of state support, people are affected. But tough decisions become necessary decisions when you're working towards the most important, the most progressive goal of all: economic security for working Britain in an uncertain world. Our new settlement for working Britain is an integral part of that, and we will continue down the path of economic security, stability and opportunity for working Britain.